So that's why I wanted to talk about IEPs because it's not necessarily a fun conversation to have, but it can be fun. But I think it's really important because I've learned, I was just speaking about the fact that right when Liam turned 3 years old, we were like pushed into the school system, and I didn't even know what an IEP was. I had to do so much research, and the one thing that hasn't changed, which is odd, is just consistently for the last 13 years we've had the same fight, and that's a fight for an equal education. So the first thing that it took me a really long time to learn, but I just want this to be just rooted in every single parent whose child has an IEP, or every single parent who has a child, or a student in school. An IEP is a legal binding document. Bam. And sometimes people will treat it like something else, but if my husband likes to compare it to when you're buying a car and you're signing that document and you're signing that contract or any contract you ever sign, think about that when you're signing your IEP, the language that's used, the favors they ask, the way if they're asking you to like, hey, we'll fix it later. If you think about any other contract that you've ever signed, that's never going to fly. So just always remember that that IEP is a legal binding document, and it's something that was fought for really, really hard. I mean, that the fight for individual education plan for individuals with disability, that was a fight, and we won. So it's our right. Education, too, is a right, not a favor. And feel free to say that in every IEP where people start to approach it with words like, do the best I can, I'm not really good at that, my schedule is really tight. It's okay to say, well, it's not a favor that you're doing. It's actually my child's right to the supports to access their curriculum. And his IEP is a legal binding document. My child has the right to an equal education. And that equal education includes the supports and accommodations to access the curriculum. And their rights, they're not favors. So that I just want that to be like, if we can just keep tapping into that for every IEP that we attend. IEPs can be a lot, so I'm going to try to break it down so it's a little, before, after, and during. Before, during, and after. Before, notify your IEP team in writing, you can do it via email, that you will be recording the audio of every IEP and every discussion thereafter regarding the IEP and its implementation. I highly encourage you to refrain from side conversations with administration or people from your team when they try to say stuff like off the record. Just if those things happen and surprise you, you go back and you write an email and you sum it up. I just want to clarify what we talked about this afternoon so it's in writing. It's really important that people stay focused on the fact that this right to an education is a right and it's not a favor, and it's just not negotiable. So you notify your team that you're going to record every IEP and every conversation. And also, this gets on tape everything that is said, so you can go back and listen if you have any questions, or when you get out of it. I don't know about you, but I have a lot of emotions, so when I get out of it, I want to go back and revisit everything that was discussed, the good, the bad, the ugly. And also, I'm always amazed what people are willing to say on tape, and if you ever have to go to due process, you have that, them saying what you're fighting is no more. You don't have to do it. It's right there in their own words. So the other thing that you're going to do is you're going to request all assessments that will influence the IEP, and that will be referred to in the IEP meeting. The second thing you're going to request are proposed goals. So they're writing all their goals. You have the right to look at those goals beforehand. So if you have any questions or concerns, and you have the chance to see them. It's not the first time in your meeting. You're also going to request a draft IEP. And I didn't learn that was my right until Liam was in the 6th grade. You can request a draft IEP, and some people will say it's not finished, and then you say, I know it's a draft. And that way you can look over what's, you're part of the team. So you have that right to look over what's happening in that document. So again, when you sit down in that meeting, everything's not a surprise. But what I like to say is that it's for timeliness so that you can be prepared, right? So that we can go about it in a timely fashion and you don't have those really long IEPs. You're going to request them in the name of collaboration and, of course, time management. They are your right. It is not a favor. They are your right, and they must be provided 3 days before the IEP meeting. And if they are not provided in that timely fashion, you may reschedule the IEP. I'll let that set for a second. That's your right. Okay, and once you get all the assessments, you're going to read every assessment, every proposed goal, and the draft IEP. Read it. I know that's hard, and it can be so overwhelming. And to be honest, it's not always fun, especially when it comes to assessments. Those assessments, I will say time and time again on record, they're inappropriate because they're having my child do something without supports that he'd never in a million years be asked to do without supports. And I put that on the record. When I'm looking over those assessments and I'm like, that's unfair and it's really cruel. So I like to read it first so I don't hear these words in front of this group of people that may or may not be collaborators and on my son's side. I'm reading my notes because it's like a lot. IEPs are a lot. And I hope that this is not overwhelming. It's supposed to be fun. So you're going to make notes of all your inconsistencies and all your questions, everything, including if you find words that, like I find that the words if necessary and when needed don't belong in my son's document, because a support is only going to be used when it's needed. And if you write if needed or when necessary, then I think the teacher or the administration can make it about their opinion of if it's needed or when necessary. It's needed when my son asks for it. It's necessary when my son needs it. And that is also something that I say, and I'll wait and let them take it out of the document. And I had this last IEP, I had to keep saying it over and over. And then they want to move on. So then, hopefully you have a collaborative team, and I have it split, and the people that were on my side, they see it and they understand that the truth is this whole thing is supposed to be a collaboration to support your student to receiving an equal education, which is their right, not a favor. And I think that needs to be a t-shirt. I'll just say that over and over again. If they mention time management, I remind them that it's not about my time or their time, it's about my son's time. And so we want to create the best document that supports him in accessing his curriculum and his right to an equal education. And I think my team knows that sentence comes out of my mouth. It's just something that I say a lot because it's the truth and it's really what's at the core of that document. A side note is that you can also request an amendment IEP, and that's like not as much of a big deal, but you can request it and to address those things that are your concerns, because you don't have to sign that IEP. You can agree with none, some, or all. And I've done across the gamut. And then I write a letter of everything I don't agree with. And then if it's at the end of the year, at the beginning of the year, we address those things. And hopefully, again, there's collaboration and those changes get made in your IEP. I think that's all for during the meeting. You're going to make notes, and then you're going to go over them during the meeting. And the only thing that I've learned, I think the hard way, is that to leave emotion to the best of your ability at the door. If you can sit in a place of logic and that this is a right, not a favor, and you can record that meeting and just keep coming back to the right. And that's great. If they say something that it's not right, because things that are wrong get said all the time. I ask, that's very interesting. I've never heard that before. Can you put it in writing and show me where you got that information? Right? And since you're recording, they're going to say it out loud. And if it's nonsense, when you take it to the people who are really in charge of implementing and making sure that your child gets an equal education, they're going to hear it. They're going to hear what was said, and it's always happened for me that the right thing's been done, and hopefully that will be the path of least resistance. So the first and most important thing is press the button on your recorder. Try to leave emotion out the door. Bring every note and discuss every concern and take your time. That is your time to make sure that document. What I always tell them is, what if you all won the lottery and didn't come back next year? This document has to has to represent Liam's supports and what he needs to access the curriculum. And then they like that. They like that scenario. And I think that anybody needs to be able to step in and uphold your child's right. It can't be like a bunch of, I don't know if it says this, or do we really need that? It has to be really clear and cut and dry. It is a contract. It is a legal binding document. So side note I want to make on placement. Inclusion is best for everyone, or most everyone. But as a parent, you know if it's best for your student, or if it's not best for your student. You know, trust that. They have to prove it's not. It's not your burden to prove, it's their burden to prove that it's not. And so you get to make that decision, and you're a part of that conversation. And I want to, I don't know if you know this, it took me a while. It was actually one of Liam's projects that he had to do. Inclusion, that's your child's right to equal education and inclusion in the classroom. But know that segregation in the classroom became illegal with Brown versus the Board of Education. So we stand on that, the shoulders of Brown versus the Board of Education. Brown versus the Board of Education makes segregation in the classroom illegal. And so when they try to sell me a non-inclusive classroom, I call it what it is, and it's a segregated classroom if I don't want it, right? If it's never been what's best for my student. If I want it, then you can call it non-inclusive, you can call it whatever makes you feel good, whatever is best for you. But if they're trying to present something other than what it is, and the words that the team, if somebody's trying to deny my son a right, they usually shy away from segregation and discrimination. And so when you see it, you call it, right? And that will usually turn the conversation, or at least kind of let them know that you know what you're talking about, and it's not about emotion, it's about a right. All right, so the truth is taking a student, and then curriculum. There's two different curriculum paths, and now actually the alternate curriculum does have a path to a diploma. And in my day, it was off curriculum, and then they get a certificate at the end of 12th grade. But now you can take alternate curriculum to a diploma. So know that, like if you choose alternate curriculum for your student, that can go to a diploma. But you don't have to make that decision until you're ready to make that decision. And no IEP team can tell you that that's what they're going to do. And I tell you this from experience. That a team tried to do that before. There are assessments that need to be done. There's so much that needs to be done, because that is changing the course of your child's curriculum path. So just know that if it's not right for your child, the law is on your side. Your child has a right to an equal education and the supports to access that education. And I had a meeting with a teacher today that was telling me about Best I Can and all of this stuff. And I said, that's great, but my child has a right to access that curriculum. So whatever you think he needs to access what you're presenting, that's what needs to be in this document, because that's the right. The right is the supports in place to access the curriculum. But if you want alternate curriculum, wonderful. That's your right. If you don't want it, they can't make you take it. And that's just, I only say that really hard because it was really, really forced on us for a really long time. So the implementation I have here, and communication. So communication is part of our IEP, and I put that in the IEP because communication helps us suss out the non-implementation of my son's IEP. And your student is not accountable if the IEP is not upheld. Does that make sense? Like if they don't provide the supports and don't implement his IEP and then try to fail your student, they can't do that. They have to support your student, and your student has to have that implementation. They can't just try to funnel our kids down a pathway. So you want to always make sure that you're communicating with the teacher, that you're communicating with the resource, that you're every email. I always include the principal on that. Keep a paper trail of the IEP. And as parents, and I've been having conversations at the beginning of the school year, and I've been having these conversations with parents already who've had, the science teacher doesn't know why my student is in their class. Well, your student is in their class because they have a right to be there. It's the right to an equal education, period. And so the teacher wouldn't let him in the class, said, no, there's only 20 minutes. They don't need to come out. I just want you to know that's discrimination and that's a violation of their right to an education. So what I do is I just write a letter and I include the principal and I include the teacher and I call it out. I acknowledge that happened, that it is unacceptable and moving forward. And so it's on the record, because a lot of times what you experience is nobody ever says anything. So the principal will say, hey, that teacher's awesome. But it's only because we never spoke up. Parents are so afraid to speak up because they're afraid to be the squeaky wheel. That doesn't exist. You have new teachers almost every year. And our students' right to an education should not be relied on. Like, if you have to squeak, if you don't want me to squeak, implement their IEP and uphold their right to an education. And that's really, and it's taken me 13 years to get here, so if you're not there yet, but that's really what it comes down to. If you don't want me to squeak, uphold their right to an education, implement their IEP. If you're afraid of teacher retaliation, that is horrible and it's illegal, and that teacher will not be a part of your life anyway. So next year, but also they're going to do what they're going to do, and not calling them on it. Like as a parent, we know that's wrong. Like, we don't let our child stay out till 3 a.m. and oversleep for school and think, well, I don't want them to be mad at me. Like, we would never do that, right? We want they're accountable. And also, this isn't about a teacher that doesn't want to change. This is about your child's right to an IEP. So I'm kind of getting a little off track, but it's the IEP, that document that we have that just needs locked legal binding. A few examples of accommodations that you can ask for, and you might have questions. We have lists of them, and you can also Google, but like, you can ask for extra time, a scribe, a calculator, front loading, tangible over digital, anchor charts. So there's like so much. Just think about anything that, is it a pencil? Is it a larger pencil? Is it better? Is it scissors? Is it someone to cut? Like, cut for them, like whatever it is it printing pictures instead of drawing? Whatever, you work with them, whatever that is, ask for it so they can access their curriculum. I just go back to, like, I need these glasses to read this small print. If I didn't have them, I wouldn't be able to this is my support. Everybody needs support. There's no shame, and you should never feel bad. You should never be made to feel like what you're asking for is like anything other than, thank you, yes, I think that will definitely help your student to access the curriculum. I just encourage self-care, like right after a meeting, whatever the meeting is, even if it's like a great collaboration with a ton of friends where you're like, oh yes, this is going to be great next year. When you step away, take a day you don't have to read that IEP right away. Take a day to take a breath and just like hug your son and be like, what do you want to do? Or your child. Sorry, I have a son, so that's what I say. Don't go near that IEP or what they've sent for at least a day. Like, whatever you do to clear your mind, take that time for you, because it's so much work going into it. It's so much work during, and then so the after, allow yourself to decompress, even if it's just like 15 minutes of like binging some show that your daughter would laugh at you for watching, and that's just personal experience. But just, it's really, really important to take care of yourself, because they can be very, very stressful, and they can really distract us from this beautiful life that we have in front of us. And that's not what it's about, but fighting for your child's rights can be very taxing. Once you've gathered yourself, read it from top to toe. Sometimes what's said in the meeting isn't what makes it into the document. So any place that's happened, you want to make a note of it, and you want to put it in an email Sometimes they'll make the changes and sometimes they'll say we have to sign it the way it is, but you can disagree. Now, for me, I've done it to where I've attached a list of things that were wrong and said I disagree with all but this. Sometimes it's been so profusely non-representative of the meeting we had. And like I said, those words were in place that just it wasn't a good document, that I just disagreed with the entire thing. That's, again, that's your choice. It's up to you. And I think what I want mostly whenever I talk to anybody about their IEP is, I feel like we have to put our big girl, I have to put my big girl boots on. Everybody, we have to put on our, I feel like I'm putting armor on. Like if you've seen the Odyssey, I'm really like putting some armor on to walk into that room. And what serves best is really to not let them change you into what they're doing, to come from a place of collaboration, and just standing so strongly in the fact that this is a right. And I know there's a lot of stuff going on right now where people are trying to like shift and move and make things like into something else and move the Department of Special Education. But that does not change the fact that your student has a right to an equal education. That right to an equal education happened so long ago. It has nothing, when it was first created, it had nothing to do with disability. That is something that we all have. We all have a right to an equal education, and your teacher had a right to an equal education, and that's why they're in that chair teaching your student. So I just want you to, if it's a right, it's not a favor. And the IEP document is a legal binding document, and the supports in that IEP are so that your student can access their curriculum to receive an equal education. And people fought for it and they won. So it's ours. So as not fun as it sometimes can be, and sometimes you'll be surprised because I feel like there's a change coming. We're going to do it, and you're doing a great job.